Yeah, I thought, Friday afternoon's game, some of the things we worked on all week as far as getting pucks into the offensive zone and trying to create scoring opportunities quickly on those rushes. We probably had 5 or 6 goals that were directly related to that. So it was a good night. And then obviously Saturday game was a little, different from the standpoint their goalie played much better. Actually, as a team, they played much better Saturday. And so good weekend. Just got to continue that momentum that we had this past weekend and put it forward up in Mankato.
What are some key things you want to see as your team wraps up the first half of the season?
Similar to what we did last weekend, they'll play very tight in their defensive zone. They'll block a lot of shots, and so your job is as you enter the offensive zone is try to create opportunities as quick as you can. Whether it's a 6, 8, 10-second window where it gives you the best opportunity. The longer you're in the zone, the more they'll compact. They'll play it really tight, and it makes it really challenging to get pucks to the net because they're willing to block shots. So again, line rushes as you enter the zone will be one of the keys, especially in Friday evening's game.
It's amazing what one weekend can do for a goal scorer. We're talking about Britta. She just surges right up. What did you see from her in terms of just being in those spots like you're talking about there and taking advantage of those quick opportunities that did come up to her?
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, 5 or 6, maybe 7 of the goals we had Friday were related to kids, shooting the pucks in areas where, some other weekends or some other situation they might pass. So we're trying to, the mentality of shoot first. And, you look at Britta's first goal, it was a great shot about 12 inches off the ice right over the goalie's pad. And then, in this third period, she came down and beat her to the far side. So, you get into those scoring areas, you get inside those face-off dots. And, as you watch Britta practice and watch her play, she's got a very hard shot. And so she hit, a couple early on, and that certainly builds your confidence. But it's like on Soph Shirley's first goal, Comfort takes a shot through traffic where normally she might pass that puck. But, again, that shot mentality first, and all of a sudden it creates a rebound, and so it's right there to put it in. So those are things we worked on last week, and they saw examples of what it looks like in the game, and the end result is we got a bunch of goals because of that.
Get a good stretch off again after this week. How do you? We'll get talking for them, but what do you want them to do in the break to kind of keep some of the momentum going? Because you come back with a doozy of a non-conference series.
Yeah, we come back a little, earlier than we normally have over the last 10 or 12 years. But, this time of year is a little bit different than what we went through in November, just because it's the holidays and we get involved in finals. And as kids get done with finals, they head home. And so the big message is to don't become a couch potato. Don't sit around and do nothing. And so be active. And so they're used to being active, and, you take them out of their comfort zone because their habits that are instructed now when they come to the rink in the afternoon, they're practicing, they're lifting weights, they're working out, and it's nice for them to take a breath, go home, spend some time with their family, and then come back, and we'll have 4 or 5 practices before we head out to Quinnipiac, and obviously get involved with a real tough series because they're certainly off to a great start the first half of their season.
Coach, how would you assess how that first half has gone? When we talked several weeks ago about how crazy the schedule was going to be. Has it worked out well, and how have things gone?
Yeah, I think the players have managed it well. It's been a challenge for the coaching staff because if you have multiple weekends where you're off, you have to be creative in your practices. And as I've mentioned before, you have to have purposes to your practice. You just don't show up and run through practices. I mean, we can do that, probably with our eyes closed, but you have to keep the players involved. You have to keep them engaged, and so you try to do things that will help that process. And I think they've handled it well. Like I say, we probably played one of our better games from an offensive standpoint, not because we scored 13 goals, but just the way we're trying to create this identity and try to create us becoming a better team. And obviously, if you're able to score goals, it's helpful in a lot of different areas. And those are the things I thought we'd make progress on. And even with the breaks in November, they've been pretty focused when they come to the rink and practice. And obviously having Thanksgiving weekend helped, and they got a chance to spend some time with their family. And then again, we'll take a couple weeks here after this weekend and do that same thing. And the nice part about the second half is those first 3 weeks we don't have school, and so we all went to school, and if all of a sudden they came in and said, for the next 3 weeks, you don't have to go to school, you just get to play hockey, you'd be smiling just like you are right now.
I saw a few of your girls were selected for Team USA
Yep.
to play. What kind of honor is that for them?
It's good for them. They missed the first go around just because we were involved in the meat of our schedules. The only games we had in November, so 3 of them that had got invited, they weren't able to go because of obviously school and they have a responsibility here. But they'll get a chance to go out. For the 3 of them, they were part of the group last year. 2 of them were on the Olympic team last go around. So anytime they get back together with their peers on the national team or the Olympic team, they'll be excited. So they get a trip to Vegas, they get to go to LA, and then they get a couple days off for Christmas.
One message that's always been preached with this team is like not being complacent. So with obviously picking up these big wins and then also going into another break, how do you keep that balance and keep that message going with the team?
Well, I mean, part of the position they're in now, and they're all in pretty good shape. They're in game shape, and so it just becomes a mental game. And so I think the Christmas break is good for everybody. It's like a family. We can be around our family too much, and everybody needs a day off or an hour off or a week off. And we're no different than a family. We just have more people in our family, and so we spend a lot of time together. We travel together. We hold each other accountable, and so when they get a break and they actually go spend time with their actual family, from a mental standpoint, it's a release for them. And as they had mentioned before, as they come back, after Christmas, it's really 3.5 weeks of, they're still battling to become a good hockey team and doing things necessary. But when they leave the rink, they don't have to worry about school. They don't have to worry about studying. They don't have to worry about an exam or papers due tomorrow. And it's amazing just taking that away from them. How much more enjoyable life becomes to them, because it's like being a professional player. All they have to do in their day is to play hockey, and they all love to play hockey. So if that's all I have to do, and I get to be a normal person after I leave the rink, I mean, they're usually smiling.
Mm-hmm.
It's not very often that you have a signing class who's almost all of them have had experience playing here. Your fans have seen a lot of them play already. What did that group? I mean, how did that come about with having that many of them be, internationally, experienced already in terms of playing that U18 tournament?
Well, the big thing is our willingness for our athletic department to reach out and get an opportunity to host that tournament, and I think we all saw what we're capable of putting on, and then for the players that got to play in it, whether you're playing for Canada or the U.S. or one of the other teams, they got a treat for themselves just because there were people in the crowd, there was excitement for the players that'll be coming in for us next year and joining us. They've now seen the atmosphere. They saw it, as in the recruiting process, but they were in the stands watching it. They've been on the ice now with a full house and Canadian flags and USA flags waving back and forth. So I'm sure they'll be excited as the second half of the hockey season goes by, because they usually come in the early part of June, and that's not too far off. So it's a good class. It's a very highly skilled class, and as you mentioned, they've experienced with their respective teams a lot. But more importantly, they've had international experience, and I think that always bodes well for those kids, because they're highly motivated. They want to get better. They push themselves, and they're always working at becoming better players.
It seems like a lot of them had that speed that you would like to see from what I remember seeing them at that tournament. Is that one of the things you saw on a lot of those players, is that they can keep up at this level?
Yeah, I mean, the recruiting process, there's a lot of different things you'll look at, and obviously, if kids have a high skill level and they have great skating ability, I mean, whether I'm playing basketball or whether I'm playing football or whatever sport I'm playing, if I can do it a little faster than you can do it at it, I can do it at a little higher level than you can do it at, that's the foundation of, what could become a very good player. And so they're all good students, but more importantly, their families are solid families, and we're looking forward to the chance to work with them. And no different than the kids that came in this year, the years past. It's, they got to continue to work at their game and continue to push themselves. It'll be fun to watch them grow.
You put a bug in anyone's ear yet to say, hey, let's host that tournament again? Because I know there's some recruits that we'd like to get in our building again sometime down the road.
Well, that's one of the benefits, because not only did the people in Madison get a chance to see high-level hockey, but, with the television broadcast all over, the world, other people in other parts of, the United States and certainly in Canada got a chance to watch the games, and as they're watching the games, they're seeing all the banners and they're seeing, you know, Wisconsin Badgers. And so the sidekick of all that is, you know, it certainly helps in recruiting because, you know, when people see us and they understand us and they get a chance to look at what we do, it becomes an attraction to them. And then, you know, do they have a daughter that's playing and at a level that can come in and help us out? So it was a great win situation because, you know, for those kids that played in the tournament, if we hadn't hosted it, they weren't going to get a chance to play because they would have aged out. And so, you know, for Sims and for Layla, you know, they got a chance to play. For Enright, they got a chance to play in front of a full house here in Madison and compete against Canada, you know, for a gold medal. And you only get one shot. Some kids get two depending on their age and how good they are. But once you get past 18, then you don't get another chance to do it. So I think that's what I was most happy. We're going to give these kids, and whether it was the U.S. team, Canada, or some of the other teams, an opportunity to experience it.
So maybe we'll see it again here.
You got to talk to those. That's out of my pay grade.